Shut up and sit down.
Carnarvon is a seaside agricultural town just down the road from the Pilgrim Mines. It's where the blokes wearing the high-vis clothing sit down for a meal of prawns dipped in mango chutney. There's a surprisingly high variation of crops grown locally, but mostly bananas and mangoes with some tomatoes and grapes. The soils are still very sandy with mostly winter rains. The Gascoyne River provides the crops with water during the drier summer months. There's also a number of fishermen operating out of here, giving the town a unique connection with the sea, with a number of memorials to those who have lost their lives to the deep blue. Like other towns I've stayed in Western Australia, most of the shops shut at 4 p.m, the people disappear into their homes before the sun goes down, and the streets are taken over by the red and blue flashing lights and the people swearing into the night. I must say that I'm still seeing the anger from the local Indigenous communities, but it is subsiding from the levels I saw in the Kimberley. There's only some people who have a 6-foot fence, and only some stores are locked behind steel barricades, and only some streets have video cameras. I'm starting to find that many of the towns in WA are very boring, and that there is very little to do. People have ordinary homes and seem to spend all their money on a 4-wheel drive, so they can tow their caravan or boat on that great weekend escape. I feel very sorry for the local youths who have very little to keep their mind active. I look at the local tram museum and I saw that a century ago, someone in this town had ambition. About the only public spaces I found were on the nearby Burrage and Wicklock Islands, and the shallow waters around them, and the foreshore around the Carnarvon for skiing. The Gascoyne River is not deep enough to support water sports like skiing, and the waves at the Pelican Point beach are far too dismal for anything but sunbaking. There's not much around Carnarvon, and the only interesting destination within a day's ride was Point Colba. This location is infamous for where debris washed ashore from the sinking of the HMAS Sydney. Poor design of naval ships back then meant they were unable to get the lifeboats into the water quick enough, and they lost all hands, some 645 sailors. The true location for the battle was about 200 kilometres further south, off the coast of Shark Bay, and this memorial is no longer utilised. Along the coast there are numerous campgrounds, some free and others paid. There's little to no services out here. You have to cart in your own power and water. I still can't understand the attraction to towing a caravan to sit on an unforgiving coastline, just to have it all covered in salt spray. There's a beach with the first surfable break I've seen so far down the west coast, but you'd be the only one surfing it. There's also a lighthouse, which may or may not still work. I'm lost to understand the attraction for so many caravan towing 4x4s in WA and the desire to sit in such a desolate location. I mean, since I've gotten onto the Victoria Highway at Katherine in the Northern Territory, there's been little else on the road but them and the road trains. The hundreds of kilometres between service stations, the outrageously priced drinks, the lack of mobile coverage, the never-ending straights. The long road crossing the top end has not yet finished. I'm only now starting to break up the monotony with the odd wave to my fellow motorcyclists. For the first time in a long time, I've been able to detour the route to an interesting lunch stop. This hop, I found myself at Billy's Bar in Coral Bay. Initially I was hopeful of making it to the holiday town of Exmouth, but Coral Bay was 150 kilometres less travel, so it won out on the day. Coral Bay is a windswept beach comprising of white sands and blue shallows, and is no bigger than Little Bay in Sydney. Surrounding it are several caravan parks and a couple of resorts. In the centre of town is the supermarket and the pub, for which I stopped at for a Wagyu burger and a beer. The pub is fairly similar to any beachside eatery that you'd find anywhere on the east coast, and was a bit of a change from the roadhouse and the deep fried warmers, although the busiest section of the pub was the Bottle-O. On one side it was the best lunch stop I've had since Ali Beach, and on the other side I felt so out of place amongst the caravan towing 4x4s. Luckily I moved on quickly, coming back to find a guy and his dog loitering around the bike and the coal bag now loose. This week I'm staying in a 1960s asbestos semi-attached cottage. More spacious than I would have expected, but it's made me think it's got to be an interesting movie plot about booking a haunted Airbnb though. I think I should have stuck with a private room, and at least with a host the place doesn't feel so empty. I think this week I've only really said one sentence to anyone, and it's the first time on this trip I've really started to feel lonely. The bike is doing well. It was a mistake waiting so long to get it serviced, and I shouldn't have travelled from the Sunshine Coast to Broome before getting the oil changed. I think I should organise the service while I'm in Adelaide. If anyone has any suggestions then please comment below. I'm still looking forward to new rubber at Perth, and I'm confident that there's enough tread on the front tyre to get me the last couple of megametres. This is the first Airbnb I've stayed at without NBN, and I'm still 150 kilometres away from resumption of Starlink services. Luckily Vodafone is working well, even though I chewed through all my data, and they keep sending me messages about upgrading to an unlimited plan. After dropping my phone for the umpteenth time, I've finally broken the screen. I should be able to wait until the end of the year though, when Samsung starts running out their current model. I don't want to pre-order the new Flip, as I don't want to risk going through the same hassle on the road as I did with DJI. As part of this trip, I wanted to visit the four most extreme cardinal points on the Australian mainland, and this hop out of Carnarvon has to turn off the steep point some 200 kilometres down the road. I'm still umming and ahhing about this, the point which is about a 400 kilometre return trip to the closest service station. About 300 kilometres of that is dirt, which is likely to drop my maximum speed to about 60 kilometres an hour and the range on a full tank to about 250. I can carry extra fuel to get the extra distance, and I've done more dirt in the day on the road to Weipa. If I break down and run out of fuel, I'm likely reliant on those caravan towing 4x4s to get me back to civilization. I still don't know if Steep Point should join the too hard list, with Cape York and Wolf Creek Crater. But right now I didn't travel all this way to turn back at the first sight of difficulty, so I'm thinking I'll give it a go. After 4 weeks of warmth, I'm finally back in the cold weather. The weather app keeps telling me that it'll warm up soon, but it always seems to be in a couple of days. I don't feel at home in Carnarvon. There's too many 4x4s and guys wearing nothing but black. It's a town full of really nice farming folk and fishermen, but there's little else to do around here but plant stuff in the ground or throw a line into the sea. Next stop is Geraldton, which should finally see me complete this section crossing the top end. Hopefully after that, I won't have to manage my speed to make sure I can get to the next fuel stop. The path back to the east coast sees me crossing the Nullarbor, which is only a short trip from Esperance to Port Augusta, and nothing like the 3-month marathon it took me to cross the top end. So thanks for following my adventures around Australia. Remember to go out there and do something to enjoy your day. Postscript. When you're on a WA beach watching a gorgeous sunset, with half a kilo of tiger prawns and some Smirnoff Ice, remember to bring some napkins and a fresh bag.